I want to thank LSI. My name is David Nichols, the CEO of Orthobond. I'm excited to talk to you about Ostiguard, which is the first FDA-approved antibacterial treatment for permanent implants. But to get you in the thought and the mindset of a technology like this, I'd like for you to think for a minute, who do you believe contributes to society? You know, we're all businessmen and women here, and there was a survey done by Cambridge University Press of who contributes to society. And as a business person, I felt, I ended up on the bottom of this list of what people think contribute to society. Some of the top are obviously military, teachers, scientists, doctors, engineers, but as a business person, I want to believe that I really contribute to society. I like this quote. Albert Einstein said, "Strive not to be a success." There's a lot of good business people at this meeting, but rather try to be of value. And I had a CEO I worked for once at a Fortune 500 company said, if I solve an unmet clinical need, I don't need a lot of accountants to tell me how much money that we're going to make as a company. We need to solve unmet clinical needs. Well, how does Orthobond and how does our company add value to this healthcare industry? Well, we've addressed one of the greatest healthcare challenges that's facing medical implants today, and that is contamination and infection. So by solving this problem, we can add a higher quality of life to our patients. But in order to understand why we're in this situation, let's take a step back first and look at surgery. So implantable devices have not been around forever. Surgery has. We've been doing surgery for thousands of years, but surgery throughout history has been fast and it's been very painful. It wasn't until anesthesia was invented in the mid-1800s and then sterile technique in the early 1900s that surgery became something that we could do more with. And then devices only really came about in the last 50 years, even though surgery's been done for thousands of years. So about 50 years we've been doing that. And we are moving into an era of regenerative medicine, but we still are in the era of devices, pacemakers, neurostimulators, hips and knees. We are in this era right now. And with any new technology, there are complications of this. And implant-related infection is one of the things that affects our society. And it affects it in several ways. You may not know, but the 5-year mortality rate with implant infection is greater than breast cancer and prostate cancer, two things we talk about a lot. And of the 2 million hospital-related infections that we see every year, 70% of them are related to implants. So we've added these great implants to our site, but we've created another problem that these hospital-acquired infections are mostly related to implants. And despite all the rigorous methods to clean operating rooms and to clean hospitals, they're still rife with bacteria, still rife with fungus and viruses in our operating rooms. And so that's why when you explant implants, 70 to 80% of them have some trace of bacterial contamination on them when we retrieve the implants. So obviously for our society, there's a heavy cost of these revision surgeries. And if you're a patient, almost all of us know someone that has got an infected implant. And we should be able to prevent that. We consider infected, if you look at the government's list of never events, contaminated and infected implants is one of those never events. And why does this happen? This is an image of an implant, a high magnification of an implant that sat on the Mayo stand in an operating room and just for a few minutes, and you can see the bacteria that landed on that and deposed on that implant. There are numerous articles that bacteria are present in the operating room. You see it in the air, the HVAC system, gloves, surgical gowns, irrigation fluids, the workers themselves, the patients bring bacteria to the operating room. And we presented hundreds of articles to the FDA on the presence of bacteria in the operating room. It's one of those things when you read these articles, you do not want to have a surgery. But fortunately, most of us have good immune systems, and the sterile techniques are really good. We've advanced the sterile techniques in our generation such that those help protect. But one thing we're not protecting is that implant, that foreign body we're putting into people. Yes, it's sterile. Yes, it's past biocompatibility, but it gets contaminated in the operating room. And you'll see some stats of why this happens. So let's look at these papers. These have been done over the past decades, but when you don't put an implant in your body, remember, surgery's been done for thousands of years, but when you don't put an implant in the body, the second column from the right, it can take tens of millions of bacteria to cause an infection. And that's why most of us, our immune systems fight off that infection. But as soon as you put an implant, again, a sterile, biocompatible implant, it only takes 100 to 1,000 bacteria, so 1,000 times less bacteria to cause an infection, because that implant becomes a host for that bacteria to form, to colonize, and cause biofilm. So that's why in the United States, there's been 79,000 publications on antibacterial devices, but none of them have been commercialized yet. And the biggest reason is the FDA came out with guidelines that said we're not going to allow prophylactic use of antibiotics. You remember about 30, 40 years ago, the drug-eluting stents were a big deal, but the FDA said they're not going to do that anymore. So in developing Ostiguard, we had to have a strategy to both solve the unmet need, but as well as get through our regulatory agencies. So number one, we had to create something that does not deliver drugs into the body, or it would be considered a combination product and very difficult regulatory pathway. We wanted to avoid antibiotics, but we had to have a surface that would achieve rapid, broad-spectrum antimicrobial activity, and also don't develop superbugs, don't promote resistance to antibiotics. So we needed a very stable chemistry, and that is Ostiguard. So Ostiguard has a broad-spectrum protection against bacteria. We did numerous studies to show it's safe and tissue-friendly. It doesn't harm the healing process. Nothing comes off our implant. This is about a 60 nanometer layer that we permanently covalently bond on, so it doesn't come off, and it actually attracts and destroys bacteria on contact. Since we've been approved by the FDA, we've had numerous companies, from breast implants to orthopedic companies to neuromodulation devices, come to us to protect their implant. So the surface, we bond to the oxide layer of the implant if it's a metal. If it's a polymer, we create an oxide layer to that. It's a positively charged surface that kills bacteria mechanically, not through drugs. So, and we put this molecule on at a very dense rate of 1 e to the 16 quaternium ammoniums per square centimeter. So it has a positive nitrogen charge on the implant, and again, about 60 to 70 nanometers. So it's imperceptible to the eye. It doesn't impact the way the doctor does the surgery. So how does this work? It's a mechanical killing. First, it immobilizes the bacteria. Bacteria do attach to it. The positive surface attracts the net negative charge of the bacteria. It keeps bacteria from colonizing, so it attaches to it. Second thing, the quats want to enter into the bacteria, but they can't. Just like an antibiotic goes inside the bacteria, the quats want to, but they're covalently bound to our surface, so they cannot enter into the bacteria, but they cause these blebs. They poke holes in the cell wall, which ultimately, between the immobilization and the poking the holes, it ultimately destabilizes the cell wall and kills the bacteria. So we were required to show efficacy against gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. In the standard assays, we had 3 or 4 log reduction against the bacteria, and the FDA also had us develop some assays that represented what happens in the operating room, all the ways that bacteria, from a bloody glove to the HVAC system, to simulate what happens in the operating room. We were able to kill those bacteria. We had to do safety testing to show that we're compatible, cobalt chrome, titanium, porous coatings. We had to show where, again, it's a nanosurface, so easily works with microsurfaces. So where are we today? We are commercializing. We're through the FDA. We are scaling up. Our current process, we can treat parts in the hundreds with our internal lab, where it's a wet chemistry process. And then we are scaling up manufacturing to be able to handle much more volume. We're working with a partner to be able to treat parts in the hundreds of thousands. And we are a CDMO, so we help you get through the FDA, and working with our master file that we have with the FDA, we help you get through the FDA, and we're branching into these new fields, neuromodulation, implantable breast, and cochlear implants, and trachea voice box implants are some of our customers, including dental implants. So we're moving beyond using vancomycin in the wound to try to resolve these infections. And now let's treat the implant with a surface that will eliminate bacteria. So Orthobond is raising a $30 million round to branch us from FDA approval to commercialization as we grow out. We'll have about $4 million of revenue this year, growing to $200 million in 2030. So love to have you join us either as an implant manufacturer or an investor to join us in this next phase of our company's growth. Thank you.